Have you ever felt your heart race as if a dark secret was about to be revealed? Picture a place where science pushed past the limits of safety, a place where every creak of metal and every flicker on a gauge whispered that disaster was imminent. This is the story of Santa Susana, where raw human ambition clashed with uncontrollable forces and every decision carried the weight of a potential catastrophe. Deep in the remote 1,500-acre expanse of the Santa Susana Field Laboratory, a government site active from 1949 until 2006, engineers and scientists set out to harness the raw power of the atom. Far from the prying eyes of a curious public, on barren land, watched over by silent, brooding hills, they built 10 experimental reactors. Among these daring projects, one experiment broke every rule: the sodium reactor experiment. Unlike conventional water-cooled reactors, this design used liquid sodium, a substance that could handle temperatures up to 785 Kelvin, about 512 degrees Fahrenheit, without the high-pressure constraints of water. Yet sodium's wild reactivity meant that even a small droplet of water or a stray puff of air could trigger a violent reaction. Back then, safety protocols were still in their infancy. The reactor was constructed with unyielding confidence and a touch of reckless hope. There were no modern, prefabricated modules or thick, reinforced domes. Instead, every component was assembled piece by piece on site. A raw construction of 23-foot-high carbon steel containment vessels, a 12-foot 6-inch outer tank, and a core built from 1.5-inch thick stainless steel. Engineered to deliver up to 2.7 megawatts of power at its peak, the reactor vessel was maintained in a precarious balance by the constant circulation of reactive sodium, a system that offered promise but also harbored hidden dangers. Inside the core, the operation was like a carefully choreographed dance. Rows of hexagonal graphite moderator cans, each about 10 feet high and 11 inches wide, stood like silent guardians, slowing down stray neutrons. Interspersed among them were fuel assemblies, each composed of 7 fuel rods, each rod being 6 feet long and containing 12 fuel slugs. These assemblies were lowered into the core through one of the 81 openings in a massive 75-ton shield plug that rotated to allow controlled access. 2 cooling loops worked in tandem. The primary loop carried away the intense heat from the nuclear reaction, while the secondary loop transferred that heat to a steam generator powering a 6.5 megawatt electrical plant. Even with these impressive numbers, the volatile nature of sodium meant that the smallest error could transform a well-orchestrated process into an uncontrollable nightmare. Santa Susana was more than just a testing site. It was a stage for Cold War ambition. In the frantic years following World War II, America was determined to assert its technological might. At a time when every breakthrough was measured in megawatts and every miscalculation could spell national disaster, Santa Susana became a symbol of both hope and hubris. The facility not only advanced nuclear research, but also played a crucial role in developing rocket components and space gear for the Apollo missions. With budgets often exceeding $10 million, a staggering sum for the 1950s, the race to innovate sometimes pushed safety aside. In this charged atmosphere, the sodium reactor experiment was a daring gamble, a bold, high-stakes venture where every decision was made in haste and every oversight had the potential to ignite disaster. Behind the cold steel and technical blueprints were real people, engineers, technicians, and operators whose lives would be forever entwined with the reactor. Imagine cramped control rooms filled with analog gauges and blinking lights, where operators worked grueling 12-hour shifts. Their eyes were fixed on temperature sensors, pressure gauges, and radiation monitors that could spike from safe levels to as high as 500 millirem per hour near the high bay area. Each beep and every flashing light sent shivers down their spines as they fought to maintain control over a system that seemed to defy logic. Among them was a young technician, let's call him Jack, whose hands trembled as he adjusted a cooling valve during a particularly tense evening shift. Jack's colleagues exchanged anxious glances while watching readings jump unpredictably. Their whispered communications, laden with both hope and dread, underscored the reality that every split-second decision could mean the difference between normal operations and a full-blown catastrophe. The pressure was immense, the stakes unthinkably high, and every moment felt like a countdown to an unknown fate. In the early days, the reactor delivered flashes of promise. On one occasion, it managed to power a nearby town for a full hour, a brief moment when 6.5 megawatts of electricity lit up homes and ignited dreams of a new energy future. But as the initial successes mounted, small signs of trouble began to emerge. Temperature readings that should have been stable started to fluctuate by 20 to 30 degrees unexpectedly. A subtle buildup of sodium oxide in the cooling channels, an increase of nearly 15% over several runs, quietly signaled that the system was under stress. What appeared to be a minor technical glitch soon revealed itself as a harbinger of deeper, more dangerous problems. As the reactor's runs continued, the system became increasingly erratic. Routine adjustments to the coolant flow turned into frantic maneuvers. Automatic shutdowns, scrams, occurred as frequently as once every 30 minutes during high-power runs. Each scram was a desperate mechanical cry for help, a moment when the reactor's alarms blared, warning that it was teetering on the edge of disaster. Meanwhile, in a hidden logbook discovered years later, an operator's note read simply, "Something isn't right. Readings off by 25%. These lingering questions, left unanswered at the time, now echo with the weight of what was to come. Then, on a day etched in infamy, everything unraveled. In the washing cell, a chamber designed to clean the fuel rods, a blockage allowed approximately 18 US gallons of water to mix with trapped sodium. In less than a second, a violent chemical reaction ignited. The reactor exploded, and the massive shield plug was hurled 18 feet into the air. The blast, estimated to be equivalent to 10 to 15 tons of TNT, sent shockwaves through the facility. In that terrifying moment, every precaution and every hope dissolved into chaos. The explosion unleashed a torrent of radioactive materials into the environment. Within hours, levels of radioactive iodine and cesium spiked dramatically. Official estimates later suggested releases of up to 6,500 curies of iodine-131 and 1,300 curies of cesium-137. Although federal reports claimed the contamination was within safe limits, the truth on the ground told a different story. Local communities soon experienced a rise in cancer rates. Some areas reported increases as high as 25% over baseline levels. The once pristine environment became a toxic wasteland, with soil tests in surrounding fields revealing contamination far above acceptable thresholds and water supplies tainted with radioactive isotopes. The impact on human lives was profound. Families lived in constant fear, knowing that the air they breathed might be silently poisoning them. In one poignant account, an elderly resident recalled, "We used to play outside without a care. Now every day is a battle against an invisible enemy." The land, once a source of hope and natural beauty, had become a living reminder of a disaster that would cast its shadow for generations. In the aftermath of the explosion, a monumental cleanup effort was launched, a process that would stretch on for decades and cost millions of dollars. Starting in the early 1960s, teams of engineers, environmental scientists, and cleanup crews converged on Santa Susana to dismantle damaged reactor components and safely dispose of radioactive waste. The cleanup was methodical and painstaking, involving the sealing of contaminated areas, removal of hazardous materials, and ongoing monitoring of the land's recovery. Despite these Herculean efforts, the legacy of the disaster remains, a scar on the landscape that is both visible and deeply ingrained. The cleanup operation has since become a benchmark in environmental remediation, influencing safety standards and reactor designs around the world. Modern nuclear facilities now incorporate multiple redundant safety systems, automated shutdown protocols, and containment structures built to withstand forces far beyond those experienced at Santa Susana. Yet, even as technology advances, the haunting memory of that fateful day serves as a constant reminder of the price of unchecked ambition. Today, as we venture into new frontiers, from advanced nuclear reactors to breakthrough renewable energy sources, the story of Santa Susana stands as a powerful lesson in humility and caution. It forces us to ask hard questions. How far are we willing to push the limits of science? At what cost do we chase progress? And can we truly learn from past mistakes before they repeat themselves? Modern reactors, benefiting from over 70 years of research and improved safety protocols, are a far cry from the experimental marvels of the 1950s. Every component, from automated shutdown systems to robust containment structures, reflects the hard-won lessons of Santa Susana. Yet, even as these advances promise a safer future, the echoes of that day remain, a warning that the forces we seek to control are as unpredictable as they are powerful. Interwoven with technical data and historical records are the personal accounts of those who were there. Jack, the technician whose trembling hands once fought to adjust a cooling valve, is just one of many whose lives were indelibly marked by the event. Their stories, preserved in faded logbooks and whispered memories, add a human dimension to the cold numbers and stark engineering failures. They remind us that behind every technical specification and every regulatory standard lies a human story of hope, fear, and sometimes regret. Even now, the silent corridors of the abandoned facility and the scarred landscape of contaminated soil continue to whisper warnings. Unanswered questions remain. What if a minor anomaly had been ignored or a critical decision made too late? These lingering mysteries compel us to look closer, to learn from every crack in the concrete and every faded page in an old logbook. As we gaze into the uncertain future of technological innovation, the legacy of Santa Susana serves as a guiding light, a call to balance our boundless ambition with respect for the natural world. It is a reminder that progress must never come at the expense of safety, and that every breakthrough carries the risk of unforeseen consequences. And so, as we piece together the fragments of that fateful day, we are left with a story that is as much about human resilience and error as it is about scientific discovery. A story that continues to echo through time, urging us to proceed with caution, to learn from the past, and to never forget the true cost of unchecked ambition. This is Freak File channel that bring dark history and horror story to life via documentary. If you're as fascinated by these dark chapters of history as we are, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Join the conversation. Drop a comment below and let us know which hidden secrets we should uncover next. And remember, sometimes the darkest secrets are the ones that light our way forward.